and welcome to week 3 of our virtual music class. Today we are going to be reviewing note values as well as looking at note names. Let's get started.
Alright, so last week we learned a lot about note values. You actually turned in a worksheet that looked a lot like this, where you went through, wrote the note names, how many beats that note had, and you drew the excess notes off to the side. Let's just take a moment to review. We know that the whole note is sort of the whole picture. It's almost like a whole piece of pie. The half note is, so let's pretend this is our whole note. The half note is that note split in half. Each of those halves equal one half note, but together they would be the same amount of time as the whole note. Our quarter notes are like that whole note, but it's like our pie here, but split into quarters, where each quarter note is a quarter of our whole. And last but not least, our eighth notes down here are like our whole note, but split into 8 different sections, where each eighth note equal an eighth of our whole note. Now, let's look at it in another way that might be a little bit easier. Let's just go through each note and each rest and how many beats they are worth. Our whole note and our whole rest are each worth 4 beats. Our half note and our half rest are each worth 2 beats. It can get confusing when looking at our whole note or our whole rest and our half rest, remembering which one is which. Now, our whole rest kind of looks, do you see how it sits below the line? Think of it like a hole in the ground. It's below the line, it's below the surface, it's a hole. Our half rest sits above the line, and actually it looks kind of like a hat. You can think of our half rest as a hat. Next, we have our quarter note and our quarter rest, each with are worth 1 beat. And last but not least, our eighth note and eighth rest, each worth half of a beat. Now, there's something tricky that you're going to need to know for this week's assignment. If you have 2 eighth notes that are together, each one of these is an eighth note. But when they're together, instead of this flag on the end, they combine like this. Now, these are 2 notes, not 1, which means in order to find out how many beats this is worth, we add half plus half, which is 1. It's the same amount of time as a quarter note, however, it's 2 different notes. All right, let's go ahead and take out this worksheet. You should have received 1 piece of paper with 2 sides. However, we will be starting on this side today. If you haven't already, make sure your name is at the top of the paper. That way I can be sure to give you a grade. Now, it looks complicated, but I promise it's actually really easy. Let's look at number 1, for example. There's some numbers written here. Let's figure out what it is. We know the half note is worth 2 beats. So there's a number 2 here underneath. And there's another half note, number 2. Oh, I think I see it now. 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's almost like math, but it's probably much easier than the math you're doing in your math class now. Let's look at number 2 here. This is a half note because remember our half note is like a hat. Our half note, that's worth 2 beats, or half rest, I'm so sorry. Our half rest is like a hat worth 2 beats. Our half note is 2 beats. Another half note, 2 beats. 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. Easy enough. Let's do number 3 together. So first we have our half rest again, which is worth 2 beats. Our quarter note, which is worth 1 beat. Our half note, 2 beats, and another half note worth 2. So let's add these numbers up together and we get 7. Going on, let's do one more together. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. You can do number 4 on your own. Let's do a tricky one together. I'm going to go to number 6. We have our quarter note with 1 beat. This little squiggly thing here, it's a rest. What kind of rest? It's our quarter rest. Also worth 1 beat. Oh no, what's this? We talked about this. Let's see. Well, this is 2 eighth notes combined together. We know that each note is worth half, but if you add 2 halves together, you get 1. So this is worth 1. Our half note, we already know it's worth 2, and our quarter note, or quarter rest, is worth 1. Add it all up together, and you get 6. All right. Now that we understand how that works, we're writing the numbers underneath for how many beats that note or rest is worth. How many beats is it worth? And then at the end, we're just adding the numbers up together. So we're figuring out how many beats are all of these notes and rests worth total. Part B, you are doing the same exact thing. As you can see in number 1, half note is worth 2 beats, half note's worth 2 beats equals 4. However, I still want you to take your pen and draw all those numbers underneath. It seems like an extra step, but for me, when I'm grading your paper, it makes it easier to where I can tell where you messed up. That way I can help you learn better. So make sure you are showing your work by writing your note values underneath. Even for these sideways math problems, you're still going to be taking your pen and drawing at the side. And then, if you put in the work, it's just a simple addition problem, and I know that you guys are really good with that. So now that we went over our note values, you can either pause the video now and finish that side of the worksheet, or continue with the video as I explain the other side of the worksheet. All right, now that we've reviewed our note values, we're going to learn how to read notes on a staff. And for some of you, review how to read notes on a staff. We will, while we're playing recorder, we will be using our treble clef, so our notes will always be the same. Now, there's a couple ways that we can learn how to read the music on the staff. First, you can memorize the order of the line and the space notes. Let's go over how to do that. There are 5 lines on a musical staff, and the note letters are like this: E for the bottom line, G, B, D, and at the very top we have F. Now, a really easy way to memorize the order of these line notes are every good boy deserves fudge, or every good boy does fine, or every good boy deserves fortnight, or whatever other acronym you were able to come up with. But the one that I typically use is every good boy does fine. Okay? Those are our line notes. Let's erase those for now, because next we have to talk about our space notes. And our space notes are the notes that go in between the lines, in those spaces. Even though there's 5 lines here, there are only 4 spaces, and these ones are really easy. So let's fill them in. Our space notes, filling in that space between the lines. And here's our order of space notes: F, A, C, E. And yes, you can have an F here and an F on the top line. They're both F. It's just that this F is a note that is lower in pitch, and the note that is higher in pitch, and we would play them differently on recorder. Don't worry too much about that right now, because let's talk about our space notes. It seems that our space notes form a word down here, face. It's really easy to memorize your space notes because you just need to memorize face, F-A-C-E. Now, maybe you're like me and memorizing a lot of acronyms isn't really helpful, because then you work really hard to memorize all these acronyms, but what do they really stand for? What do they really mean? Here's my favorite way to look about reading notes. So, we're using our treble clef, And our treble clef is nicknamed the G clef. It's called the G clef because it circles around the G. So if we know this is G, we can figure out every other note on the staff because guess what? It goes alphabetical and G is our last note. So this is G, and because it's the last note, we would restart. So this is A, B, C, D, E, F, and then our G would sit above on that line there. Now, going down, we have our G, we have our F, because I'm going backwards with the alphabet, E, and D. You can use whichever method works best for you, whichever one will help you learn. All right, well, go ahead and pull out your worksheet again, and let's turn to the side that shows the different notes on the staff. It says note names at the top, and please make sure you write your name at the top of the paper. Now, using that knowledge, let's go ahead and fill in the notes. You have lines here where you will write the notes. My sheet does not have the lines, but please write the note names on the lines that are provided. Now, we know that our treble clef is our G clef, which means it circles around our G. And look, our very first note is on that same line. So our very first note is going to be a G. Now, let's look at our second note. There are two ways that we can figure out what this note is. Either because it's on a space, we could look at our space notes. F-A-C-E spells face, which would mean this is an A. Or we could go, oh, well, this is a G because this is our G clef circling on this line. And after G, it restarts, so we would be on A alphabetically. Whichever way best helps you. But the answer is A. Let's look over here. Our very next note. Oh my goodness, let's look back. It circles in the same line as our G clef, which means we have, once again, another G. Here's another one. This one's tricky. Let's look at our line notes this time. We have E, every, G, good, B, boy, D, does, F, fine. Remember that sentence there is, every good boy does fine. Now, since this note lands on the line that stands for boy, every good boy does fine, that would make it a B. Or you could look over here to our A and say, oh, look, our A is here, and this note is one higher. This is our A here, and our B would be on this middle line here. That must make it a B. Now, I would like you to complete the rest of this worksheet on your own, writing the note names on the lines. It seems like there's a lot, but you will find that as you are going along, you are finding notes that are similar or the same throughout. Use that knowledge that we've talked about to figure them out and write in the note names. This will be due into your homeroom teacher with your other worksheet. All right, friends. Well, your assignment for this week, as I've already mentioned, but let's go over it again. You are completing this side of our worksheet, counting notes, where you are adding up note values, just like simple addition. And then on our other side, you are doing the note names, writing the note names on the lines underneath the notes. You must complete all of both sides of this worksheet and turn it into your homeroom teacher at the very latest by Friday, okay? If you are confused about any part of this worksheet at all, it's fantastic that you have this video. And throughout the video, I explain each portion of how it works, and then I'm explaining how the worksheet works as I do it. So if there's any confusion at all, please just rewind the video and watch it again. Maybe if you're confused about one section but not the other, then rewind the video and listen to that section. Or pause the video at any part that you think might help you, okay? And if you still can't figure it out, you are always more than welcome to email me. And until then, I'll see you next week.